Hello, my friends, and welcome. Welcome back to another session with the older man. Today, my friends, I'm going to hit you with something different. But this channel is all about teaching you guys stuff about life. Today, we're going to talk about psyop or psyops, which is technically short for psychological operation. You know what? Let me ask my dear friend, Miss Chat, what is a psyop? Can you repeat again what is a psyop?
A psychological op, or psychological operation, is a strategy used to influence a group's perceptions, emotions, or behavior. These operations can be used in both military and civilian contexts to achieve specific goals, such as shaping public opinion or influencing a target audience.
Are they particularly good in most cases or sinister?
They can be effective in shaping opinions or behaviors, but their success depends on the strategy and execution.
Are they more used by commercial companies or government?
Yes, commercial companies often use similar techniques in marketing and advertising to influence consumer behavior and brand perception.
So there you go, my friends. You know, I have always been fascinated by how incredibly crazy large groups of people can be. And this is one of the reasons why I stepped away from religions, because I realized the massive amount of influence it had on a person's brain, right? Because once a preacher gets you to believe one thing and convince you that he is the conduit to God, he can pretty much convince you of anything else after that. We've seen examples of preachers who've made people eat grass thinking that they were purging themselves. Preachers in Africa are notorious for this.
Did you enjoy the testimonies? Did you believe that petrol can deliver a person?
Packed to capacity, or here to receive the word from the men they affectionately call men of God.
Even when you drink poison, it will lose its power because it's entering a no-go area.
Pastor Lisicho Daniel is known to instruct his followers to eat grass and send them into what appears to be states of hypnosis.
I believe I'm in trouble because of you. And this trouble makes me to rise high because of you.
Political leaders, Hitler, for example. But on a lighter note, we have companies, massive corporations who have used these techniques to influence purchasing behavior. And that's why I wanted to bring you this particular subject today, because I want you guys to understand when you are being psychologically manipulated. Because the mark of a strong man is a man who uses his critical thinking skills and a man who can identify when he's being manipulated. So I'm going to go through with one particular video from this gentleman. But of course, before we go there, my friends, listen, subscribe, please. Book a session with the older man if you have any issues, if you like mentorship, if you have any problems with building your business, etc. This is where I can offer help from an older man perspective and a man with some critical thinking skills. If you need help with your YouTube channel or any social media growth, I'm here to help you as well. Of course, pick up my Content Creators Toolkit so that you can actually start building your own content, whether it's ebooks, whether it's courses, your own YouTube channel. This digital Content Creators Toolkit, my friend, can get you up and running, harnessing the power of AI to move you to the next level so that you can actually start earning some residual income, some passive income for 2025 and beyond, my friends. All right, so let's get into today's video. And this video is coming from a channel called Chase Hughes, and its title, Once You Know This, Every Psyop or Psyop Becomes Obvious. So this is a great lesson. I really love this video. I'll try not to comment too much, but it is a powerful piece and I want you guys to really absorb it.
The intelligent minorities can engineer consent through the use of manipulation, propaganda, and control. And we should do it.
People have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
We're in the midst of a serious financial crisis, and the federal government is responding with decisive action.
I know that the American people share my deep belief that if a danger exists in the world, it is a danger shared by all.
We need to actually double down on the public health measures.
You can't look at that television and say, nothing happened on the 6th.
I'd like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Most people have no awareness of how easily our behavior and even our identity can be completely taken over. But people are waking up. I spent 20 years in the U.S. military. I'm a behavior expert. I've trained psyops. I'm the best-selling author in behavioral psychology. I want to show you exactly how to identify what we call engineered reality, or what some people call psyops. At the end of this, I'm going to give you a tool that's literally going to give you a score out of 100 that shows you how likely something is to be a psyop. Let's do this. So the first thing you need to know is following the FATE model: focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. This is what triggers the mammalian part of our brain that makes all of our real decisions. The first part is focus. Psyops always aim to hijack your attention with repetition, shocking visuals of fear-inducing scenarios. Some examples are like 24/7 media coverage of a crisis, or constant repetition of terms like unprecedented. So with this, pause and ask, why is this message being pushed so aggressively? So compare how much airtime different stories are receiving and note any disproportionate focus.
All right. You see, this part is hard to decipher in today's media hunger world, right? Because one thing is very apparent. The algorithm knows that if a particular message is being watched continuously or hard, the algorithm knows we're going to push it some more. CNN broadcasts and YouTube, they're not much different. CNN knows exactly how many eyeballs are on their television set. This has been known forever. Those little boxes, every time you turn that little dial, it knows which channel you're on, how many homes are watching, and at what hour. And I know this because I used to work for a television channel selling ads back in my younger days. So we knew that we got more money for peak time versus, dead time. But we also knew how many people were watching a particular program. And if that program was getting a lot of attention, we would make sure to replay it again and sell more ads from that program. Same thing YouTube does, same thing television is doing. So the reputation on the news is not much different than entertainment. Unfortunately, news has now become entertainment. So I don't know how to decipher whether it's a psyop or psyop operation that's happening versus the algorithm knowing that people are interested. Let us push it out more. Oh, they're scared. They're excited. Let's push some more of that shit. In the news business, we have something called if it bleeds, it leads. Meaning all the accidents, plane crashes, the war, all of that stuff leads in the news first. Because broadcasters knows that it grabs the person's attention because it digs deep into their psychology. Death, love. Those are one of the most powerful things that holds people's attention. So anyway, I just thought I'd pause there because this is the first thing I thought about. How do we know it's a psyop versus just the algorithm know that we're into this sort of stuff?
The second part here is authority. Trusted figures might shift their tone or positions unnaturally to support the narrative. So watch very closely for expert panelists or endorsements where authority figures might speak outside of their expertise. Pay close attention to that one. Then we have tribe. So messages that polarize opinions or create stark in-groups versus out-groups or exploit our tribal instincts. For example, labeling groups as patriots versus traitors or scientific versus deniers. Be very careful when you hear that language. Finally, we have emotion. So be wary of any communication that triggers strong emotions like fear, hope, or outrage without any clear, verifiable evidence. So emotional responses suppress critical thinking. Emotional responses suppress critical thinking. So as a tip here, analyze the evidence that's presented to you. If facts are replaced by appeals to emotion, you need to be very, very cautious. As an example of this, think about like a news channel repeatedly showing images of empty grocery shelves and panicked shoppers during a food supply scare. It dominates every broadcast and it pushes people into fear-driven behavior. Next, question novelty. Our brains are wired to focus on sudden or unusual changes because they signal potential threats or opportunities. And this is an evolutionary survival mechanism. Psyops exploit this by creating events that break normal expectations, like unexpected crises or dramatic revelations. So ask yourself, why is this new? So consider if the event or somebody's message has been artificially manufactured or timed. Look for patterns like sudden shifts in public opinion, trending hashtags that are unusual, or viral videos that seem very coincidental. So for this one, just picture a new viral video just claims to expose a government cover-up, but it conveniently comes out the exact same day that there's some damaging evidence against some high-ranking official. The timing shifts public focus. All of this is part of the NCI system I developed for teaching tradecraft and extreme psychological operations. And there's even a gigantic textbook for all of this stuff in the description. Definitely not for everybody, but it's definitely the most comprehensive guide in the world on this stuff. So next item, look for multiple sources. Centralized narratives create an echo chamber, and they silence dissent and they narrow perspectives. For example, if all media outlets present identical talking points, it is a humongous red flag. So actively seek out contrarian or independent voices, even if they challenge something that's already in your head. So in reality, an example, during a maybe breaking health crisis, all the major news outlets report on the exact same study, but independent researchers revealed the study was funded by a company selling the solution. So watch for that group speak. Next is identify cognitive dissonance weapons. Let's talk about how this works. So cognitive dissonance comes up when new information clashes with our identity or our beliefs. So psyops exploit the hell out of this by including micro-agreements. Micro-agreements are little, small, seemingly harmless concessions to shape your identity. And over time, you're going to unconsciously align your behavior to reduce that internal conflict. And as a weaponization example of this, a psyop might present you as a part of moral or intelligent enlightenment, like only good citizens do XYZ. If you disagree with that, you risk some identity conflict there. So reflect on your identity and ask, am I being nudged to identify with some other group?
Political parties, the coronavirus, Democrats versus Republicans. If you're not on this side, then you're the enemy. If you're not on my side, then you're against me. If you're not with me, you're against me. There's no discourse that tries to bring people together in the middle. And whenever it starts to happen, guess what? They try to pull them apart because they know that it's easier to manipulate people who are divided. Relationships, man versus woman, it's easier to control them. Especially in the black community, this was a massive psyop. Keep the man out of the house, keep him away from his woman, split them apart. Now, massive destruction in the black community. My friends, we have to identify when we're being manipulated. You got to listen to what this guy is saying carefully.
So be very careful of any campaigns that are asking for seemingly minor commitments there, like signing petitions, changing your profile picture that evolves into some bigger compliance or demand later. As an example of this, let's say a company launches an ad campaign and they claim real patriots buy local. If you disagree with their product, it feels like rejecting your identity as a patriot. So this pushes you to conform. Be very, very skeptical about those identity statements.
And that is so deep. That is such a deep statement. If you don't buy local, you're not patriotic. And I'm bringing this up now because this is a huge thing between China and America. First, Americans, you are missing out on some amazing electrical vehicles that will put Tesla to shame. Absolute shame. But you're not getting these cars in America. Over here in Dubai, me and my daughter, we driving to school every day. And you know what one of her favorite activities are? Identifying Chinese EVs, electrical vehicles. They're some of the most amazing looking vehicles. Every Tesla you look at, they're the same. But man, you're going to see some amazing Chinese vehicles that are just mind-blowingly beautiful. But not only that, the insides, the mileage, the amount of amenities and all the things that are inside these vehicles for a fraction of the price, it's mind-blowing.
Steering wheel. Perhaps the most impressive thing about the C-Line 7, though, is the quality of the interior. All of the surfaces are trimmed in leather or leatherette, and there are lots of other nice materials as well. There's this suede effect down here. You've also got this crystal gear lever like you get in a high-end BMW or a high-end Volvo, and everything feels really solid. In fact, there are only a couple of things like this plastic here behind the steering wheel that let the side down slightly. But overall, as I say, interior quality is really, really impressive here, and certainly a notch above the Tesla Model Y. All versions get this 15.6-inch touchscreen infotainment system as standard, and it's quite high up on the dashboard, so it's easy to see. It's nice and bright. It responds quickly when you press the icons, and as you can with other BYD models, you can change the layout from landscape to portrait by pressing an icon in the bottom right-hand corner.
You guys don't know that, but you know when it becomes apparent? When ChatGPT is offering you a product that you're going to pay $20 a month, which I am paying $20 a month for, the $200 a month version, China just dropped it free with DeepSeek a couple of days ago. It was a psyop. But I want to get back to the one point so you don't lose track. Telling you that if you don't buy American or if you don't buy Chinese, you're not patriotic. It's a psychological manipulation on both sides. So just be careful you're not being manipulated.
Next is looking for those emotional scripts. And what I mean by this is the scripts that were written in our brains by our ancestors. So manipulated narratives trigger instincts like the fear of loss or scarcity, social rejection, or danger. For example, a media story about food shortages might activate survival scripts that cause panic buying and stuff like that. And we have scarcity fear. This is sudden warnings about limited resources like water or medicine. Also sparks that kind of behavior.
Remember when everybody went out and bought toilet paper during COVID? Couldn't find a freaking piece of toilet paper on the shelves in America. Toilet paper. Think about that shit, literally. And we over here in Dubai and in the Middle East are going, why these people are worried about wiping their ass? You know, you could just wash your ass, right? Which is what everybody does over here. Toilet paper is just to dry it because everybody washes their ass. And we see fights in supermarkets for people freaking trying to get the last roll of toilet paper. Think about the manipulation that had been done with people. It's insane. Gentlemen, we have to be vigilant on when we're getting manipulated. You have to understand these things.
So sparks that kind of behavior. And then we have tribal rejection. These are threats of being socially outcast, like you're selfish if you don't comply. And those things override logic every time. And as a tip for this, break the script by focusing on the facts. Like, what's the likelihood of this scenario? So compare the claims with other sources. For this, just picture where a politician says something like, if we don't act now, our children will not have a future. This taps into survival instincts, those ancestor scripts in our head, and it's tied to protecting offspring. It creates urgency without any facts.
But unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore because most people are not having any kids anymore, and most people are primarily selfish. So those scripts rarely work. So you're going to see some new ones starting to come out, but it is a powerful tactic.
Next is follow the money. So there's a trail of beneficiaries here. So identifying who benefits always is going to reveal the motive. So look for funding sources like sponsorships or political connections that are tied to the narrative. So use tools like OpenSecrets.org or public financial records to see who profits from this. So for policies or campaigns, identify the industries like pharmaceuticals, tech companies, etc., that stand to gain the most. So to illustrate this in your mind right now, picture a charity that's promoting clean energy awareness and they seem noble until an investigations are showing that it's funded by a solar panel corporation that's lobbying for subsidies or something like that. Next, and this one is very important, is analyze the context boundary. The mechanism here is context, and context defines what is permissible. So manipulative people shift contexts to normalize extreme behavior. As an example of this, in emergencies, people accept surveillance or martial law that they normally would completely resist. So ask, what is the context? Compare some similar events in different settings to see if the rules or responses seem disproportionate. Look for contradictions.
How can you apply this to OnlyFans girls who are executing my body, my choice, who are executing I'm a good person, I'm not hurting anybody? Yes, I slept with him because you were not stepping up and doing your job. I teach you guys the same thing under the guise of critical thinking skills. Because if you learn to think critically, because what critical thinking does is it stops you, slows you down, and think about where is this information coming from and does it make sense? Instead of just going on your emotions. He's going one step further and telling you how you're being manipulated and how to identify it. Now, once you identify it, stop. Then you apply critical thinking. Then you realize that it is literally countering the psyop.
So for lots of the students who are brand new to NCI University, this right here is the most massive realization when they realize that the ability to weaponize cognitive dissonance and then shift the context can get anyone to do almost anything. As a hypothetical example of this, let's say there's a major cyber attack. The governments are now justifying some sweeping surveillance laws to protect the citizens. This changes the context to make previously unacceptable actions seem absolutely necessary. Next, spot the use of archetypes because they're woven into our brains. Psyops simplify narratives by using archetypes like heroes and villains and saviors. Some examples are like portraying one leader as the sole solution or demonizing dissenters as the enemy. Deconstruct the story. Ask who are the characters and what roles are they playing. Simplistic, like good versus evil stories usually signal manipulation.
I watched on CNN this morning. They had, some insights into the war with Russia and Ukraine. And of course, you know that there's a lot of North Korean soldiers who came over to train with the Russians against the Ukrainians. Of course, these men are now inserted into the war. So the Ukraine just released some footage where they had captured some North Koreans, And these men, boys, they weren't men, they were boys, like literally young men. In order to evade capture, they were blowing themselves up. Guy had a grenade under his chin when they turned him over. He blew himself up. Now you just say to yourself, wow, this is not even his country he's fighting for. North Korea is way off. But he's in Russia fighting a battle for someone else. But the context I want to put here was he had notes. It's just like, wow. Imagine what has to happen to one's brain to think that his life fighting under the guise of not patriotism, because there's no threat from Ukraine to the North Korean regime. It's all about money, exchange. So he's just given his life up for some rich man's money. He's just given his life up simply because he has a manipulative leader, and it's all about money. It's shameful to watch these things play out in front of you when you know the fault in it, especially when it comes to giving up your life,
Just about every time. So always seek nuance there. In the real world, you're going to see something like maybe a leader is repeatedly portrayed as a savior fighting something that's pure evil, and the narrative ignores their mistakes and oversimplifies the conflict to prevent a lot of scrutiny. Next, evaluate the frame. So let's do a step-by-step evaluation here. First one is expectation. What are you expected to believe or do based on this thing that you're exposed to in the media? Next is belief. What assumptions are being made about you, like your values or your fears? Then we have perception. So how is reality being shaped, like selective facts or missing contexts? And definition is the final step here when it comes to a frame. What truth is being asserted as something that's completely unchallengeable. This comes up with information suppression. So really look for topics that are being avoided, critics that are being silenced. If somebody needs to be silenced in order for an idea to make it, then the idea is not good. So alternative viewpoints being discredited, that's a big one to look out for. So cross-check timelines of events and notice if critics are labeled conspiracists or if algorithms are suppressing some kind of specific search. And this is a big one, especially in today's time. So to get a good example of this, during maybe a corporate scandal, the company's PR team frames these critics as disgruntled employees with a grudge. So this shifts the focus away from the legitimate concerns to the motives of the critics. And it does it almost without us realizing that that's happening in our brain. So next, be alert to rapid compliance shifts. This one is scary and it's happening every day. PsyOps create urgency to drive rapid compliance. And these tactics are stuff like emotional appeals, staged group behaviors, or false consensus. For this, it's really important to slow down and resist the pressure to act, to question the conformity as much as possible, and test the message, engaging the skeptics there. So in the real world, this might look like maybe a viral social media challenge urges all these users to adopt this brand new symbol or profile picture or hashtag kind of overnight. And it creates a wave of compliance. So later, this is kind of like a foot in the door technique. It's tied to some divisive political agenda. Next, study the timing of the events. This one's huge, especially right now. Timing is everything. Ask yourself, why is this happening now? So what other events or scandals might this thing be distracting everybody from? So look for very coincidental timing with unrelated major news stories or political movements. PsyOps can very often be smoke screens. And in real life, you might see stuff like a huge celebrity breakup floods all of the headlines exactly as some major investigative report about government corruption is about to be released. Coincidence? Probably not. The next thing I want you to do is to sharpen your brain.
This guy is pretty switched. Listen, man, he got it figured out. Whew. There's more left to be played on this video. I'm just going to put a link to it. You guys definitely go over there and check him out. This is the first time I've heard of it. I got this video from a subscriber of mine. And yeah, guys, keep sending me the videos, man. You guys know the good stuff. Bottom line is, my friend, we need our critical thinking faculties sharp at all times. We always have to be aware when we're being manipulated. You got to learn to see these points that he just made. So, my friends, listen, that's the lesson for today. Hey, I'm here to bring you diverse information, diverse studies. You got to become a well-rounded man in order to be not only appreciated and admired, but useful to a society. Part of that is by women as well. To me, it's all about survival. How can you see opportunities? How can you avoid danger? But the good thing is, when you learn these skills, you can see problems occurring before they get to you or affect you. So my friends, subscribe, book a session, go over to the membership site. Let's have a deeper discussion. Go and check out the description of this video, and you'll see all of my offers and all of the opportunities and free things that you can get there as well. So until next time, my friends, remember, whenever in doubt, always ask an older man. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.